Hello, hello. Welcome back.
Hi.
Welcome back to another episode of Forensic Intent, you guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I love that as soon before we even logged on, I'm smiling so huge because Sonia already was like, "I got a question. Let's get down to business." Like, yes, I had to laugh. We will. We will talk about that, Sonia. Good to see you.
That's a really great question too, Sonia. I looked at that and
Yep.
I'm like, what is this all about? So, we have several things we want to cover for you guys tonight. We're going to talk. There's a lot going on. Rachel and I were just talking behind the
Yes.
camera or behind the stage. I mean, there's a lot going on, and a lot today even has materialized.
Mhm.
So, I want to cover. Hi, Laura. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. So, I
Hey,
wanted to
Laura.
cover a little bit about several cases just briefly before we go into the Carly Gregg case. And
Mhm.
Rachel's going to kind of take the lead on the Carly case. She's got the scoop on all of the competency stuff and all of that. So we'll kind of hash that back and forth, but that's going to be primarily the Dr. Rachel show on that. So, so anyway, one of the first things I want to make mention of is I don't know if you guys have followed this case or not, but there was a case that occurred back on February 20 uh, of this year with a little 3-year-old, then 3-year-old boy named Elijah Vue, VUE, like Victor Union Edward. And it's a Wisconsin case. He went missing. Um, he was in the care and custody of a friend of mom's whose name is Jesse Vang, Vang, and he had been delivered by mom to Jesse on February 12th. And the purpose, according to mom, was so that this little 3-year-old boy, this little baby, could become a man. That was what mom was hoping was going to happen, that Jesse was going to train him to be a man. So, long story short, um, Jesse allegedly goes to sleep. And when he wakes up, little Elijah's not there. They never found Elijah until yesterday, I believe, or maybe it was the day before. Rachel, was it the day before that you let me know? I think it was
My days are
yesterday.
blurring together. I
Me
think I
too.
first saw yesterday.
I think that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So he was discovered in an area. His remains were discovered, human remains, and they haven't said for sure that it's him, but they're pretty sure it is, and they're going through the investigation like it is going to turn out to be Elijah. So long story short, he was discovered in an area near Two Rivers, Wisconsin, not very far from the home that mom and Jesse sometimes shared. And I think we all kind of knew that this was going to be turning out this way, but that's the update as we speak now. The body's been located and they're trying to make a determination on whether it's actually him or not, which I don't have any reason to think that it's not going to be him, but we shall see how that
Yeah.
transpires. So, guys, just another really sad case of a little one that
Heartbreaking.
yeah, with people
Yeah.
that should never have been parenting him to begin with.
No.
So
No.
that's excuse me, that's the scoop on that. I wanted to jump
It
a
will
little bit all
Well, it'll be
go ahead. Go
interesting
ahead,
to see
Rach.
too, so once they determine if they can cause of death and if there are further charges brought. I haven't heard anything
Absolutely.
about that, but I hope that
Absolutely.
there's some justice for those who loved him and
Me too. And that's a really good point,
yeah.
Rachel. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, mom, whose name is Katrina Bauer, and Jesse are in custody as we speak and have been since February on
Mhm.
child abuse charges. But there sounds like there may be other charges coming up down the pike here too. So
Yeah.
we shall see.
Yeah. Stay tuned.
So then, yeah, stay tuned. So then, you guys, we have the Atlanta school shooting that happened recently. And that case has taken a big turn now that the suspect, the shooter, whose name is Colt Gray, 14 years of age, by the way, his father, Colin Gray, has also been charged with second degree homicide, several counts, um, based on actually 4 counts based on what he did. And it appears that somehow or another he provided a AR-15 style rifle to Colt for it sounds like a birthday present. They're still trying to ferret some things out, but the way I look at this, you guys, and Rachel, jump in here when,
Mhm.
if you agree or disagree, but to me, this case is even more clear that a parent should be charged than the Crumley case is, because they were visited, Dad and Colt were visited back in 2013 when Colt was an eighth grader and he was making threats to shoot up the school. Rachel, you familiar with that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they had we don't know a lot of details about it, but we know that he was investigated at one point for making threats. And so the father was aware of
Correct.
that investigation and had said, no, he doesn't have unfettered access to the guns. They're locked up. It's, they're safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very sad. Very, yeah, just another situation where parents should have figured out. Apparently, mom did call the school about 30 minutes prior to the shooting and says, "Oh my gosh, I think there's something really wrong. I think my son might be going to do something really bad. You need to try to find him." And according to what I have read and done on research, a couple of the students in the classroom with Colt have said that he has had a history of like asking for bathroom passes, and then he'll leave the classroom, and sometimes he'll come back and sometimes he doesn't come back. Well, that's exactly what happened in this case. He asked for a bathroom pass, is my understanding, and he never came back, and he went and got the guns and did what he did.
Right. Laura,
So,
yes, you're right. Yeah,
yeah,
I have very strong opinions about reform that needs to happen when it comes to schools and kids and guns. I don't know what the total answer is, but it's just so hard to wrap your head around a situation like this that feels so preventable.
yeah, I 100% agree. And Laura just posted that the FBI had information on this a year
Yeah,
ago, and they
they
did.
did.
Yeah, they did. And, it's another, yeah, it's looking like it's going to turn into another situation that potentially probably slipped through the cracks when it shouldn't have.
Right.
So, yeah, really unfortunate. So,
Yeah,
we,
and on the shoes of the heels of Crumbly, right? And so
right,
this, of course, every case is its own case. There are a lot of issues um, with regard to parents being arrested. But we'll kind of see how this plays out. The charges against this father are worse than they were for the Crumblies,
definitely.
and we don't know the details of why that might be. There may be things that you know that they
Yeah.
know that they haven't released yet that point to this being a more serious charge for the father.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's very very sad and confusing. Laura, you're right. It is. It
Yeah,
is.
it's very sad, very confusing. I had a point I wanted to make and I lost it, but if
I'm
I
so
think of it,
sorry.
oh no, you're fine. It's not your fault. So,
Interrupt your train of thought. I'll try to
yeah,
interrupt you every 15 seconds, and
yeah,
you just
do
try to
that.
hang on to
Yeah,
whatever.
do that. We'll have a real comedy show going on here.
We just look like two people with dementia on a show. It's what
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, very sad. Oh, I know what I was going to say, you guys. This is where I stand on parents being charged, and I'd really be curious what you guys think on this too. I think that we have to pick and choose cases. Every case has to be picked and chosen very carefully on whether or not the parents are charged. I'm hoping that we don't go down this road of this starts to become a blanket policy. And I don't think that it will, but I do think that each case needs to be taken on literally a case by case basis. And there has to be some
Mhm.
pretty egregious stuff with the parents. It has to be shown that they absolutely should have figured out that this was a potential for disaster and they
Right.
did nothing.
Right. There has
So
to be some very willful neglect, um,
exactly.
in my opinion, some willful neglect, some blatant, obvious signs that most parents would respond to and say, "Oh my gosh, I need to get my kid help."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, the management of gun safety and the different laws. I mean, we're talking, these cases. I think um, come across to people differently in the South than maybe they do in some other states or
Hmm.
cities. Families who culturally often have guns, they go hunting as a family. It's not about having guns to hurt people. It's about the sport. It's about hunting, maybe even survival for some people in terms of providing food for their families, that kind of thing. So it's going to be looked at very differently from depending on who's talking about it. But when
Exactly.
there's a mental health crisis,
Yeah.
and as a parent, you're not doing what you can to subvert that, then there's a problem.
There's definitely a problem. Yeah. So, we'll just see where that case goes.
Mm,
It's gonna get very interesting, that's for sure.
yeah, and we should definitely we'll talk more about this on other episodes we do because I had a long conversation with my sister this morning, and I think I have a whole plan for schools.
Uh-huh.
Parents aren't going to do what they need to do. I have a whole plan for schools, so I'll leave
Perfect,
you
perfect.
on the edge of your seats for that. Okay,
That sounds good. Yeah, Rachel,
cliffhanger.
I was thinking one thing that we should maybe do too down the road is maybe see if we can get Josh Schiffer to come on and talk about that whole thing because he is from that
Yeah.
area and he's just minutes
Hmm.
from where that occurred. So
Yeah.
Josh would be a good one to have on. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. Definitely.
Definitely. Cool.
So the other big news of today, before we get into the Carly Gregg case, is oh my gosh, I knew this was going to happen, and some of you guys probably did too. But Brian Koberger's change of venue in the Idaho massacres has been approved, has been granted. It does not surprise me. I think that
Mm-mm.
the judge felt like the judge had no other choice but to do that so that there was nothing left open for appeal or
Yeah.
mistrial, anything like that. And the parents then would have to go through the case twice, Rachel. They'd have to go through the trial
Oh,
twice.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's good. I mean, he deserves it. He has a right to a fair trial. We
Sure.
want it to be fair because we want the truth. And if he is the one, the evidence does show that he is the one that did this. Yeah, we don't want an appeal. We want
Hmm.
this to be, well, there's going to be appeals anyway.
There will be.
With it being a death penalty case. But yeah, we want him to get it right. I don't think the prosecution's worried about this at all, honestly. I think they
I
have
don't
the
think
evidence
so.
they have. I think they're competent. So I'm
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Probably
think
some
so
travel.
too.
Did they say where they're switching it?
Well, the supposition is that it's going to be most likely to go to Boise, which is about 300 miles away from Moscow.
See, and the
Um,
problem becomes for the family that wants to be there. So they're going to have to pay for
exactly.
accommodations if they're going to stay during the weeks. I mean, that becomes a huge pain for witnesses and for the family for sure. But
It really does, and it delays it. I don't know how much it will delay it, but it's going to delay
yeah,
it some. And this poor family has been waiting forever. These families have been waiting forever for this to get rolling here.
I know.
So there's that piece. And like you just said, Rachel, the family has a long way to travel. I was talking with one of our guests and friends of the show, Jen Coffindaffer, FBI, this morning, and she was like, I don't know why they couldn't just try to pick the jury in Boise and try it in Moscow.
Yeah, but
But
can you make the jurors travel that far is the
I see.
thing.
I don't know. That's a
Because
good
then you pay,
point.
then it's kind of like sequestration a little bit for those jurors. They're going to have to stay there during the week, away from
Yep.
their families. They can't go back at night to their kids, picking up from daycare like that. I think that's, I think it's a pain in the butt no matter what. My thought goes to also security risk for having to transport Brian
Hmm.
Koberger to and from, right? And so I assume maybe he'll be transferred to a closer prison for that period of time. But
Probably.
anytime you have to transfer an inmate, there's a security risk, and yeah, I don't love
Yeah,
that either. But I do think it's good. I think it needed to happen. It eliminates a lot of controversy.
it does.
Um, I'm not sure, honestly, it matters all that much, other than in the minds of
Sure.
of the defense. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure. I agree.
I'm
Yeah.
across the country from that, and I know, like anybody who follows true crime is gonna know. Oh, our mascot is barking. Um, anyone who follows true crime knows this case, right? So it's
Exactly. Yeah.
neighborhood
Yeah.
issues anywhere,
Yeah.
but
People have pretty much formed their opinions one way or the other on this already, too. And,
yeah,
that may
yeah,
change with some when they hear the evidence. It's my understanding there's quite a bit more evidence that has not been presented that points fingers at Koberger, but I don't know that. So,
yeah,
like you said, Rachel, a fair trial is the essence of the whole thing. So,
yeah,
for those of you who are just joining us, hi Laura, or hi Annie, hi Lori. Thanks for coming in and joining us. And
yeah.
what we've been kind of chatting about real quick, I'll just kind of recap, and then I'm going to give it to Rachel to talk about Carly Gregg. But we just covered a little bit about Elijah View being potentially, it's his remains that were found today or yesterday. So we're just kind of all waiting to see how that pans out. And then also we talked a little bit about the Atlanta school shooting and how this parent, in our opinion, Rachel's and my opinion, is much more cut and dry culpable than even the Crumley case, because he knew a year ago that his son had issues. They were visited by the FBI, and there was a lot going on even back then. And then he still bought him a gun. So that's kind of where we're at. There's a lot of stuff going on today, and our main topic for this hour is Carly Gregg. So Rachel, talk
let's
about
get into
Carly.
it.
Let's do
Well,
it.
first, I want to tell you something that I'm really excited about. Scott doesn't even fully know yet, but I'm arranging for in a couple weeks. A colleague of mine is going to come on and talk about there's this Carly Gregg case. There are going to be some expert witnesses that are going to be really important. And I know, psychological expert witnesses, they get a lot of criticism. I think there's a large lack of understanding of how that sort of whole process works in terms of, from getting hired to being on the stand. And so a colleague of mine has agreed to come on and chat with all of us. He's been involved in some high profile cases, which several he won't be able to discuss because they're still kind of ongoing in appeals and things like that. But he's a really cool guy, Dr. Robin Timmy, and you guys will get to meet him. So yay. But we're going to talk now about Carly Gregg. So earlier this year, in March of 2024, Carly Gregg, who was 14 at the time, she's now 15. She lives in Brandon, Mississippi. She was arrested for the murder of her mother and the attempted murder of her stepfather. Mother's name is Ashley Smiley. Stepfather is Heath Smiley. And the general overview is that her mother was in her room taking something out of Carly's room. Carly went into her mother's room, got her mother's firearm, hid it behind her back, walked into her own room and shot her mother and killed her. She then called a friend or texted a friend and said, "Hey, can you come over? It's an emergency. I want you to come over." The friend's parent dropped the friend off, comes inside. Carly says, "Have you ever seen a dead body?" Friend says, "No." She says, "Come on upstairs." Shows her deceased mother to her friend. Her friend, you're going to have a lot of questions as I explain some of this. We're going to backtrack and get to some things because you're going to be like, wait, what? Told the friend, "I'm also going to kill my stepdad when he gets home. I need you to wait outside." The friend goes outside. Stepdad arrives home. Carly attempts to shoot him. She shoots him in, some say the neck, some say the shoulder. So somewhere in this region. Does not kill him. He struggles with the gun, gets the gun out of her hand. He calls 911. Carly bolts with the friend. The police picked her up that day later for the charges. So she has been held in detention in an adult prison. She's being tried as an adult for these crimes. And she's in solitary confinement at the prison right now. So some sort of key moments within this, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the details. But she was found competent to stand trial. So mid-July, a psychologist testified that she was competent. And just to review that, competency means that she understands the legal process. It's not about mindset at the time of the crime or anything like that. It just means that she is able to participate in her defense. She knows her attorney's role. She knows what her charges are. She knows what the potential consequences are, all of that kind of information. So she was deemed competent. She's apparently very smart. Her intelligence, she had skipped fourth grade, went straight in from third to fifth grade. Her mom was a teacher at the high school where Carly was attending at the time. So very bright girl, and actually had been student of the year the prior year at her school. Not sort of I guess if you think of a profile of someone who's going to kill their parents, not that we necessarily have one, but you don't think that the student of the year is going to do something like this. The So the doctor who the state had, her name is Dr. Gugliani. She works for the state. She did the competency evaluation, and she was going to do the mental state evaluation, which is where they determine could she appreciate the consequences of what she was doing at the time of the crime, or because of mental defect, was she unable to appreciate those consequences or understand the wrongfulness of what she was doing? She stopped short of that because she discovered, Dr. Gugliana discovered that there may be some questions about some medications that Carly was being prescribed, some of which had maybe been changed very recently, prior to her committing the murder. And because psychologists are not prescribers, um, we can't opine about issues related to what might happen to somebody on a particular medication or drug. So psychologists can do the evaluations. We go to school just for psychology. Psychiatrists are medical doctors who specialize in neurology and psychiatry. And so she said, hold on, we really need a forensic psychiatrist to opine on this. So she stopped. Meanwhile, the defense hired Dr. Webb. So this is all this past summer, you guys. I mean, we're talking capital murder case, a few
Yeah.
months time.
Yeah.
Um,
Really
even
quick.
for cases, I do competency and mental state exams that are, for things like burglary or auto theft or something like that. It months. We're talking months before I even get the case, and then a couple more months before the report. So for a capital murder case, expect a psychologist to have a report in 2 months is mind blowing to me. I would have to shut down my practice and just do that for 2 months, is what would have to happen. So the report isn't done and is supposed to be done, right? This Dr. Webb, who is evaluating her, Carly, for the defense. Um, and they just went to court not too long ago, and the judge said, what is going on here? Why don't we have a report? And they're like, well, he's making sure he does this right. And I'm like, Dr. Webb does not have this report done. I guarantee you it is. The judge accused the defense of trying to do trial by ambush, saying, what, you're waiting, you're going to wait till 10 days before trial and then release this report? No, this is trial by ambush. You can't do that. Sort of accusing the defense of doing this on purpose. I promise you the defense is not doing that on purpose. I promise you that psychologist is like, y'all are going to have to wait
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's just a serious thing to opine on. This is this girl's life. The report doesn't involve just evaluating Carly. It involves interviewing family, friends, teachers, anybody who interacted with her in the days, weeks, months leading up to the crime that was committed. Requesting records sometimes if it can take weeks just to get records from a doctor's office. There are a lot of things that we end up waiting on so that we can form the most correct opinion as possible. So I really disagree with the judge in this situation that they think the defense is just kind of withholding.
Hmm.
Um, but that's what's happening. She also recently rejected a plea deal. So the state offered a plea deal to give her 40 years. She rejected that plea deal, and she can now face up to 90 years. So the assumption, I guess, from that is that they think they have a pretty good case to, or Carly evaluates how a 14, 15-year-old evaluates this. I struggle
Hmm.
with adolescents in terms of competency and their ability to reason and participate in their defense, because what 14 or 15-year-old can say, yeah, I think this is the way to go about it, to reject this
Exactly.
plea deal that will, then again, so in 40 years, she'll be 55 years old.
Hmm.
90 years is the rest of her life. But if you've been in jail from 14 years old to 55, she could be thinking, what kind of life am I going to have anyway?
Correct.
We don't know, but it's just such a complicated situation with adolescents. So, um, just to give, the other thing I wanted to say, her attorney had argued for her to have a reduced bond so that she could get out and be cared for by her family. Now, interestingly, they show the courtroom and the judge asks, who here is part of Carly's family and in support of her? And there are like 8 or 9, maybe 10 rows of people with their hands raised behind Carly in support of her, all in support of her having her bond reduced, all saying, we'll take care of her, we'll make sure she follows the rules, we'll make sure she's getting her treatment, because they believe that she needs proper mental health treatment. And anybody who knows anything about prison and mental health treatment, you know that that is the worst place to get mental health treatment. So we know that she had been prescribed Lexapro, but that's the only thing we know. And I don't know if that's
Right.
the medication she had just been switched to, or the medication she had been taking and was coming off of. We don't know all the details on that quite yet. And we'll back up a little to that too. So just in general, though, this case is so
Mhm.
fascinating from so many different angles because of how rare of an incidence this situation is. A parricide, when a child kills their parent, is extremely rare. It's 2 to 3% of murder cases in the United States every year, and an even tinier percentage of that are adolescents or young children. It's typically adult white middle class male children of with no criminal history are usually those who murder their parents. It is very rare for it to be female and very rare for it to be under 18.
Yeah, it is.
So, and adolescents who commit these crimes typically are either victims of abuse, they have severe mental illness, some combination of the two, or there's a substance abuse issue. So many questions in this case. We really don't know. All we know is she was treated with Lexapro. Look, a lot of people are treated with Lexapro. A
Right.
lot of adolescents are. As much as people may say these psychiatric medications are ruining people, they are very, very helpful, largely helpful in the adolescent population. Um, and so I would be very interested to hear what a forensic psychiatrist says about that situation. Because we have to remember, too, that if she had a psychotic disorder going on, Lexapro is not an antipsychotic.
Right.
So we don't have all of the information. I know I've been talking a lot, and I know some people have some questions, but um, I wanted to. I don't know how many of you guys have seen pictures of her, but our thumbnail for
Mhm.
this episode has a picture of her. She looks like she's 12, 11 or 12.
She does.
She looked like that kind of even before she was arrested. Now, the outfit, the outfits that her defense attorney has been um, picking out for her to wear instead of her jail clothes are very interesting. I'm not really sure. I think they're trying to make her look more innocent and meek. To me, it kind of looks like horror film. I hate to say that, but it's kind of creepy. It's like this older schoolgirl looking outfit that no one wears anymore.
Yeah, I'm wondering, sorry, Rachel, I just want to
No, you
interject
go
real quick.
ahead.
I'm wondering too if it's not some kind of an attempt by her attorneys to make her look a little bit, out of it, basically, a little bit goofy,
Odd, a little weird, a little
odd. Yeah,
mentally ill.
mentally ill. Yeah, I mean, I could see it going either way. I
Yeah.
really could.
Yeah. I mean, I get wanting her to look innocent, young. She is innocent, young, but I'd love to talk to them about that because I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh no, she kind of looks like something from like The Shining," or like the little
Yes.
girls that ride in the tricycles. Or it's not.
Hmm.
I don't know. And so, right. So let's back up a little bit, Laura, because this is yes, the weirdest part was showing her friend. So she has her friend come over. So has her friend come over, but before the friend gets there, there's apparently video of her playing with her dogs from the cameras inside the house, playing with the dogs,
Hmm.
singing with them. I mean, la la la, you'd never know she just shot her mom, right? There's
Right.
obviously there's a disconnect there. Her friend comes over. I can't even imagine what her friend must have been thinking. I mean, part of me was like, she went outside and waited? Like,
Hmm.
she didn't call 911? She didn't call her parent who dropped her off to say, "Oh my gosh, Carly just did this?" I'm not. Was she scared? I mean, Carly had a gun. Was she afraid if she did anything, Carly might hurt her? Who knows? I don't fault this friend whatsoever. It's just a lot of questions about what
Hmm.
that friend must have been going through. What does this say? Sonia, my Catholic school uniform. Lawyer may be trying to make her look totally innocent. And it's a very weird look. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, man. There can be some like strange connections to Catholic school and horror films. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Sorry, Sonia. I'm not trying to trying to cut down your Catholic education, but um, yeah, and like no empathy, right? Like, hey, check this out. Like something wasn't right, obviously. And there we don't know of any history of behavior like this in the past.
Well, and she also said to her friend too, she says, I have 3 more bullets in the gun, 2 for the head and 1 for the chest,
For her
and
stepdad,
for her
yeah.
stepdad, yeah. And she said that. I mean, that's a very significant statement. I mean, that shows total intent,
Right, and
obviously.
she texted her stepdad from her mom's phone
Yes.
saying, "When are you gonna be home?" So
Yes.
this is where I think they're gonna have a really hard time, because I think while I, as a psychologist, see this as disorganized behavior, playing with the dog, calling a friend to come over, showing the friend the dead body, like that to me represents disorganized behavior. It doesn't
Right.
make sense. That's psychotic. Nobody does that, you know.
Mhm.
But then her waiting for her stepdad to come home, texting to make sure she knew when he was, that all shows intent and planning. And I think people have a hard time justifying or making it make sense when someone's psychotic, but they do things that seem planned.
Mhm.
Um, the thought process could still be disorganized.
Sure.
The reasons, the intent for the reason they were going to do this, their intent and their appreciation for the wrongfulness of this.
Mhm.
In some
Mhm.
ways, inviting your friend over is not very protective. Your friend could call the police. The parent could have come in with the friend. So, yes, she ran after the stepdad took the gun. That could have been because she thought he was going to shoot her. We don't know.
Mhm.
It's just it's going to be interesting to see how this is explained, or if they even are able to have an expert say that they think she meets criteria for the insanity defense, because they say that yes, that's the defense that they're putting on, but for all we know, last minute they say never mind.
Those are tough to prove. We all know that.
Yeah, they're very rarely successful. But with
Yeah.
her being so young, um, so what happens to her then if she is found not guilty by reason of insanity? It doesn't mean she gets released to the street. I mean, she goes to a psychiatric facility, forensic psychiatric facility, and they are in charge of determining her risk of harm to the public, uh, potentially for the rest of her life. Could be 2 years, 5 years. It's probably not going to be less than 5 years. Let's be real, because she has so much growing up to do. They don't know how the illness would manifest
Mhm.
into adulthood, but they would be required every so often to give the court updates on how she's doing and whether or not she's ready for release from the state hospital. She has not committed any other crimes before this, Sonia. Um, so yeah, the friend's reaction is very strange, and so I'm gonna tell you, my daughter is 14, and she's aware of this case. And I asked her, "What would you do if you were that friend?" And she said, "Well, she said I would first of all be really scared about how I might react, because if she's holding the gun, I don't know what she's gonna, she's like, besides being completely horrified of what I just saw, and she said, I don't know how I would react to that, and she's trying to get into like a 14-year-old's mind of how would you,
Right.
if
Right.
she asked you to go wait outside, and she said she would run to the nearest neighbor and make sure she called 911. I was like, yes, okay, but we don't know how close the neighbors were. We don't know. Maybe she did and no one answered, and then she got scared. I mean, we don't know. So, and I can't blame a friend who's dragged into this situation, and
Right.
God only knows how, as an adult, how I would react to something like that. I mean, that's
Sure.
horrifying.
Yeah.
Um,
There's
so
still a lot
yeah,
of information left to be figured out on
s-
this.
so much,
Definitely.
so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
But one of the things that her attorneys, you know, the judge said, no, you're not getting out on bond. We're not reducing your bond. Your risk to the community is way too high. Based upon our statutes, there's no way. They tried to get her moved to a juvenile facility. They said, no, that's not happening. Because, I mean, she's a child in an adult jail. And so they have her in solitary, and solitary confinement is 23 hours a day in cell, an hour
Yeah.
out, and you're in a cage, and that's when you can shower and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But for, even for an adult, that isolation takes a huge toll on you emotionally, mentally. For a psychotic person, it can make you even more psychotic because you have no reality-based interactions to bounce your perceptions off of. So people who have active psychosis, isolating them is one of the worst things you can do for them,
Hmm.
because they just completely turn inward into their own warped reality. So yeah, she is in confinement, and I think that's
Yes.
probably very it's probably for her safety because she's a juvenile in an adult facility. So I imagine the solitary is strictly for her own safety. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, but the judge said, we need to know, like, we need to get this report. We need to know if there's proof of her being, insane at the time of the crime. But we need to know because if she is seriously mentally ill and she was insane, we need to get this going. And she needs to be set free to where she needs to go to get help. Like,
Hmm.
um, so the judge was not playing around. He's not delaying this trial. I can't even believe it. I don't. Do you know of any capital case that has occurred within 4 months of the crime?
It's very rare. It's very rare to go that quickly. They really
Yeah,
push this through. So
crazy.
yeah,
It's
I
wild.
agree. Yeah, I
Even so,
agree.
even the stepfather says, "I'll take her. I'll take her
Hmm.
home. Like she can come out. I'll watch her. He's not afraid of her. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting situation. Adrian says, "I remember playing with Barbie dolls and Bratz dolls at 14. What is happening to these kids? I know, I
Yeah,
know." And I see my daughter who's 14, and I'm just like, that just doesn't make sense. It's how we know. I mean,
yeah.
some people, I'm not going to speculate and put anything, but I've heard other people online talking about, other content creators talking about what was happening in that house, like what was happening to
Hmm.
this girl, what was her motivation.
Right, right.
Sometimes there isn't a motivation. Sometimes this is mental illness. I know
Yep.
that's hard for people to get to understand, but this
Yeah.
happened, Laura. This happened in March
Hmm.
of this year.
I think wasn't it around the 15th or the 19th, somewhere right in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somewhere
Not
mid
long ago
mid
at
March,
all.
April, May, June, July, August. So it'll
Yeah.
be at trial within 6 months, and it happened in Brandon, Mississippi.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there's this. I was telling Scott about this. There's this shot of her on video, and I'm going to try to find it and screenshot it to share some with you guys at some point. And it's little Carly sitting in the courtroom when they bring people in for their pretrial stuff. So they've got other inmates lined up, and it's like this group of older boys. They look like maybe older teenagers. They could be men. I don't know, but they are older than her, and
Hmm.
they're all sitting there being bad or whatever, and the judge is talking about the girl's charges, and they all look over like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
that girl, they're talking about
Yep.
that girl over there, and she's kind of looking at them like, it's just such a it's gosh, it's such a juxtaposition, like seeing that shot of them is like, yeah, it was her, like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mother
Yeah.
did, Laura. So the mother was taking something away from her in
Correct.
her room, like she was confiscating something, right? And
Hmm.
that was her reaction. Yeah.
I guess before we answer Sonia's question here, I guess that some of the students at her school said, she would go around constantly just saying, "Oh, I hate my mom. I hate my mom. I hate my mom." And they just thought, that's teenage angst. A lot of kids that age don't like their moms. And apparently, obviously, it was a lot more severe than that. And so there were some flags there, but they just thought, it's just kids talking. We all say that sometimes.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it
Yeah.
goes a little bit deeper than just hating your mom, obviously. Rachel, do you know how long she was on psych meds? I do not.
We don't know. All we know is that there was some change in her medication just before the murder occurred. And so,
Mm.
I don't know from what to what. all I know is Lexapro is somewhere there in the mix.
Right.
Um, and so, right, Laura, so the stepdad wanting her home is very interesting. And, again, I don't want to throw out speculation of what might be occurring in those dynamics, but I think I had the same thought that it's like, she tried to kill you and you want her to be home with you. I don't know
Mhm.
about her biological father. The only thing I do know is that there was family court litigation ongoing, had been ongoing for a few years. It was at the time of the murder continuing to go on. So the mother had some kind of open motion in family court related to child custody during that time. And so I'm very curious about that. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
her biological father, what was going on there? Was he even involved? What was mom filing? Um, will be interesting to if that comes out as
Yeah.
potential motivation for anything.
Yeah.
Um,
It's been said that
yeah.
mom apparently speaks very highly or has spoken very highly of Carly.
Hmm.
She's super proud of her, thought she was a great kid, all that stuff. We'll see
Hmm.
if that changes as they get deeper into the investigation, but that's what I'm hearing as of now, is that mom
Yeah.
thought she was just great and probably had no idea that this was going on.
And that is possible too. It's kind of like, there could be this underlying what goes on behind closed doors we don't know kind of situation that could have been
Mhm.
horrible. This could have been brewing for a long time. This could have been a complete psychotic paranoid delusion that Carly had.
Mhm.
That mom was up to something, or who
Sure.
knows. Yet middle class family. Um, both parents worked. You know, middle class home, single family home. Um, yeah.
I agree with Adrian. I'm just really curious about more about her home life,
Hmm.
and relationships, friends at school. Was she bullied? All that stuff. I mean, and that's all going to come out, I'm sure, in the
Hmm. And that's
investigation.
right. Like, so that's the stuff the psychologist has to figure out. They need to
Hmm.
know all of this stuff, all contributing factors, motivation, reasoning, judgment, prior acts, prior thoughts, journals, anything. And Laura, yes, the gun was in the home. It was in the mother's bedroom. Her mother had a gun in the bedroom, and Carly apparently knew where it was, and apparently either knew how to load it or it was already loaded. So here we go again with
Yeah.
another gun gun issue. Um, I, I'd like to think that a teacher at the high school would not keep a loaded gun within a kid's reach if she thought that her child had severe mental health issues. But
Right.
denial is real too, so I don't know.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
This
no
case,
parent, no parent wants to think that their kid would go out and do something like that.
no, never in a
No.
million years. This case, there's a hearing tomorrow. It's supposed to be a status update on what's going on with the reports, but also to address any pretrial motions because the case begins next Monday.
Hmm.
Um, one thing that I know one of our viewers has asked me about, there is a clip of Carly at a hearing when they're discussing, most recently at the end of August, where they're discussing her competency and then her insanity defense. And Carly seems to turn slightly and she winks at someone. And it looks like this really sinister kind of like, you could take that a million ways. Like, I fooled them, or I don't think this is serious, or, a lot of different things.
Hmm.
But in full context, after I've watched all of these videos, Carly has a tremendous amount of family support that all sits behind her at every hearing. So it is very possible she turned around, caught a family member's eye. They may have winked at her. She may have winked back. I don't know. Um, so while I admit it does look pretty shady when you just see her doing it. It's like the total, like, you know.
Yeah.
She does have a lot of family support there, and so I think we have to be careful about judging that. But I will also say, if the child is psychotic, we talked about this before, you're going to see affect that is incongruent with the situation. And it is not going to be, it's going to be laughing at things that are definitely not funny, and, winking at people who aren't even looking at you. And, it's going to
Yeah.
be some strange things like that kids are very bad at faking. Okay, so if she is, and I know she's very smart, but it's very hard to consistently fake psychosis.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was kind of cheeky. It's a little cheeky wink. It was, Adrian. Yeah. So keep an eye out for that kind of stuff, but just know the in full context, she does have a lot of people there supporting her.
Well, and if we think back to a case not too long ago that I think we talked about on this show, honestly, I can't remember if we did or not, but we had the case where the lady was in the, I want to say Walmart shopping, and she
Mhm.
attacked the child in the shopping cart outside. And remember, she had a lot of mental health issues, Rachel, and she was
Yes,
smiling in court. And you know who I'm talking about. I
I
can't think of her
do.
name.
We did talk. I can't oh no.
Bianca or something like that.
Yes, I think that was
Bianca
her name.
something. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very
And
floridly psychotic. Yeah.
oh man. Yeah, absolutely. And Sue makes a good point. If you have a child who is on meds, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sue, but I think I know what you're saying. If you have a child who is needing to take medication for depression, mental health, whatever, you need to be much more careful with having guns available as well. That's what I
Mhm.
see with your comment there, and I would totally agree with that.
Yeah, and I think you've got to, kids on medications, even adults on medications. It makes me wonder what the medication switch was, because
Yeah.
if a child, let's say for example, if a child is bipolar and
Hmm.
they are just on an antidepressant medication, that can
Hmm.
create a manic episode. It can cause symptoms to be worse, because antidepressants alone for people with bipolar disorder are the opposite of helpful.
Hmm.
They need mood stabilizers, right? So it kind of makes you wonder if she was put on an antidepressant, symptoms seem to get worse. The psychiatrist, whoever was treating her, said, "Oh, whoa, 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 this isn't just depression we're dealing with. We need to switch her." And it was kind of a too late kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, I just kind of wonder about that. I think more often than not, medications are helpful. There is an increased risk of suicidal thoughts with adolescents and antidepressants, and so that's something you always look out for.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it kind of makes I'm really interested in what this medication switch is, because the psychologist for sure thought, this may have played into whatever was going on with her thought process at the time.
Hmm.
Um, and she
Yeah.
has been reporting psychotic symptoms in jail. And she has had to be treated in jail with antipsychotics and mood stabilizers. So while this is very young for this to happen, it does happen. I mean,
Yeah.
it does happen. It doesn't become violent very often when it happens, but
Mhm.
you know, perfect
Yeah.
storms occur.
Super
So
sad situation, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah. But I'm confident in this. This judge seems really on top of it, very focused on making sure this is a fair trial, that the
Yeah.
truth is found, protecting Carly's rights, wanting to know the truth about her mental illness or lack thereof. Um,
Right.
Seems
Yeah, I
very
would agree with
focused.
that. He seems very on top of it. I would agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I don't know. Does anybody have other questions about this case? It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is a lot. I'm
Mhm.
just scrolling through here to see if we've missed any. Yeah, I don't know, you guys. I mean, right now we were talking earlier before some of you joined us, and I'm just kind of filling some time here while I'm scrolling through this, but there are so many cases coming up right now, so much happening. We've got Sarah Boone coming up again, and
And
that's
her
a
new
whole
attorney.
nother, and her
The
new
way I just,
attorney. I
the way
mean,
I just light up when you say Sarah.
I know you do.
I shouldn't. It's like I'm not psychotic. Like that. That's not appropriate affect. That should not be lighting up when people say Sarah Boone. That's not. That's
That's
not.
okay.
That's not
She
cool. She's so
she's
intriguing.
she's very intriguing, and yeah, she's got a new attorney, so who knows?
Adrian. Adrian. Mrs. Boone. Oh, oh gosh. I shouldn't even say this. Adrian. Okay, I'm gonna say it. My daughter does vocal lessons. Okay, I shouldn't even say. It's fine.
Don't
I
get
don't
us
care.
canceled.
We're not gonna get canceled. Her vocal coach is Mrs. Boone this year. I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's not
Wow.
it's not they're not via Zoom from prison. So It's okay. But I was telling Adrian, I mean, geez, if it was Jodi Arias, maybe, and like
Mm-hmm.
vocal lessons from prison, but no,
Mm-hmm.
not.
Mm-hmm.
She said, don't.
Yep.
Oh, Dan Markel.
Dan
Yeah, not just your.
Markel,
We have
the
Grandma
Adelsons.
Gotti. Jay always calls her Grandma Gotti. It's the only thing I can think of when I see her. Yeah, we have Adelson, Grandma Adelson's trial. Yes, that's going to be very interesting too. I've had about enough of that family. I don't know how Georgia Cappleman can stand it anymore.
Yeah.
She's tried the same case like how many times now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. This is the sixth time trying the same case, but just a different person.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, I mean, she's amazing, but yeah, oh my gosh. So that's going to be going on. Sarah Boone's trial is going to be coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I don't know if anybody's following the Shaver case right now. I don't know enough about it really to talk. The woman whose husband was killed and she's blaming her daughter for pulling the
Mm-hmm.
trigger.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh, and you guys, what about and post some comments on this if you guys want to. What do you guys think about this highway shooter in Kentucky on Interstate 75 that's going around shooting at cars, and now they're doing this massive manhunt for him? And apparently they've identified who they think he is, but they have not located him yet.
I
So
cannot, and they've shut down school.
yeah,
Kids aren't at school. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And,
Oh gosh.
so similar. When I heard about this case, it reminded me back to the John Muhammad case, where the DC sniper case, although this one's a little different. Muhammad was a great shot. This guy's apparently not so great,
Thank
but
goodness.
still, exactly.
But
Exactly. But
terrified
yeah,
that you wouldn't, because people wouldn't want to leave their homes.
I
I mean,
know.
think about how scared. I mean, Cavalcante was on the loose around where I live, and people my husband worked with, they were being told, stay in your home. He apparently was running around one of my husband's colleagues' neighborhoods at
Hmm.
one point, and everyone was supposed to stay inside. I mean, I can
Hmm.
imagine I wouldn't be getting in my car going anywhere.
No, I agree. And
Yeah.
Sue, your point there that he may have unalived himself, I think that's been
Yeah.
speculated already that that's potential. Apparently, they have a ton of state police and deputies and local police working this case, and they have surrounded this massive area, thinking this guy is holed up somewhere in this area. And they are speculating, you're right, Sue, that maybe he may be somewhere and he may have killed himself by now. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But
Do you guys ever think about like, that's somebody's kid? Like, he has parents. I mean, we don't know if they're alive or what, you know what I mean?
mhm.
It's just so, this is when I start to get all like, gosh,
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
like where does it go wrong? Where did it go wrong?
Yeah,
What caused this behavior? I agree.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
because the vast majority of us don't display this behavior.
Thank goodness.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
Adrian, I mean, I think too, we get caught up in thinking, oh, things are so much worse than they used to be. And I don't honestly know that they are. I think they're different. I think crime in some ways can be more violent, but in other ways not. I don't know if it's just that we're more aware of things that happen. Certainly, schools are less safe.
Hmm.
We didn't use before Columbine. We didn't have kids bringing weapons to school and shooting them up.
Right.
Um, so why not here? I'll tell you my plan because we have some time left in this episode.
Hmm.
So
What's your
I've
plan?
decided. I've decided. I've decided that schools need, and first I'm going to address this issue right off the bat. If my taxes have to increase, even though I don't have my kids in public schools, but if my taxes have to increase for the public schools in this matter, I would be told this is a good cause. Okay, this I would be fine with it. I know not everyone's going to feel that way, but it's okay. I think that we need schools to have metal detectors. We need to treat schools like we do arenas before sporting events, before concerts. We don't think that arenas and concerts and places like that are being operated by like jails because we have to go through security first. I think we all respect that, we get it. Like, we want to be able to know that when we're in this big place that we're going to be safe, right?
Right.
Um, so I think we can do schools that way too. It doesn't mean you have military there with machine guns checking the kids. It's just a simple process of you go through.
Right.
I think that public schools, I think we all need uniforms so
Hmm.
that people, the uniforms need to be such that you can't be hiding big things in your coat, in your pants, and your whatever. And I think we do away with backpacks, or we
Yeah.
have them carry clear backpacks. So when I was in public school in high school, we weren't allowed to have backpacks. And this was before books were all like on tablets and stuff. I mean, we still had books, but we, we'd carry one or two of them home with us. And the rest of them we kept in our homeroom. It was no big deal. Um, this has to stop. If we can't get the gun situation out of like under control because of, our rights, civil rights, and we need
Hmm.
to do something to keep it out of the huge places we send our kids every day. And it's all about how you talk to the kids about it. You can say, yeah, well, I'm not sending you to that jail of a school. Or you can say, this is great. I love that you're safe every day going to school.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what the argument is against metal detectors and security screening at schools,
Mhm.
other than financial.
It's
But
financial.
again,
Yeah.
yeah, but again, if my taxes have to increase and I know for sure that a kid's not going to be able to get in school with a gun or a weapon, then that makes me happy for the community, because it doesn't
Yeah.
just affect the kids at the school. We've spent money on school buildings, making sure they're all locked all the time so strangers can't get in, so that nobody can access the kids without permission. We poured money um, into that, and it's not even people from the outside that we need to protect the kids from.
Right. Right.
So
True.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
No,
Adrian,
this,
they should be able to walk in normal, but they can't, so we
right.
have to do something.
I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, you guys, when I was in law enforcement, 6 of my law enforcement years were spent as a school resource officer at our local high school and at the schools around our area, the elementaries, but mostly at the high school. And even back then, I was harping at our school administrators to, restrict access. They had every flippin' door in the school wide open so anyone could come in the back door, the side door, whatever door they wanted to come in and take people by surprise. And it was really hard, even back then, to get people to listen. And we're still not doing that like we should be doing it. The school's arguments are, well, it makes it hard for the kids to all come in one or two doors, or so on and so forth. But those are things that, like Rachel's saying, we need to wake up on this and take steps. If it makes it a little difficult, and if they have to
Hmm.
go around from one door to another to go in safely, so what?
Hmm.
I mean,
Well,
there's so many
here's the
things.
thing: if you don't allow them to bring a book bag in, there's not that much to check, right? So
Right,
it shouldn't take that much longer than them just walking
right,
through the door.
right.
Um, and they really can do that now. Like my kids have like iPads, laptop that all of their textbooks are on for the most
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
So I know every school isn't funded the same, and I get that.
sure.
But gosh, I mean, this is just so. I feel like this is just so preventable.
Well, and we really need to have, and I don't know, I don't have the answer because I'm not a budgeting genius or anything like that, but
Me neither. That's probably why I have this idea.
yeah. I'm gonna tell you, we need to have at least one police officer in every school around this nation.
Agreed.
We just do. It's that time, and we
Hmm.
have to. Times are different now.
They are.
Yeah,
They are.
yeah,
Ugh, and it sounds so depressing, but I feel like there are solutions.
yeah.
Um,
There are
yeah.
some. We just haven't. We don't go down that road sometimes.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
really
we also need to
frustrating.
pass laws to allow schools to search kids' book bags.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, but even if my kid's being wrongfully accused, I want you to check their bag to make sure
Right.
there's nothing in there. Like, I mean, my kid doesn't have something that's so private that they're bringing to school that nobody can see. Like that, I don't understand that whole, you can't search my kid's locker. You don't have a right. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
to me, I'm like, get in there and tell me what's in there. Like,
Totally.
I don't
100%.
care.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I helped on Jen Coffindaffer's channel a little bit this morning with her guest Dave Ehrenberg, and they were talking. And I'm going to close it out with this, guys, unless Rachel
Yeah.
has something else. But they were talking about the red flag laws that need to be implemented in all states around the U.S. And if for those of you that don't know, red flag laws are laws that allow the police to confiscate weapons of a person who they deem to be a danger to themselves or others, i.e., if they had done this with the Atlanta case and they had red flag laws in Georgia, they would have been able to go confiscate those guns, and we probably might not have had a shooting there that day. And currently, there are only a few states in the nation that have red flag laws. I'm in Oregon. They have them. Rachel, I think they have them in Delaware, I think. But a lot of states do not have them. And that's something, in my opinion, that we all need to be petitioning for with our, with our platforms, whatever, because it's huge. And, if that's what we need to do, to give the police the power to take these guns away from these people that are nuts, basically, we need to do that. Sadly, there are some states like Tennessee and Oklahoma that absolutely oppose these red flag laws. And you guys, I just don't get it. Rach, what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I don't see what, I mean, if a protection order is filed against you, you have a restraining order filed against you, then you have to turn your guns in.
Yeah.
There are other reasons why guns are taken. When your rights start to cause danger toward and harm toward other people, those rights go away.
Mm-hmm.
So I listen. I'm all for it. I'm not all for taking away gun rights, but when there is a reason and a danger, I mean, all you have to
Mm-hmm.
do is say, well, would you risk your kid for it? Absolutely not. Take the guns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just a no-brainer to me.
Me too. Sonia brings up a really good comment. And the reason it really struck me and why I put it on the screen is because Sonia says, when I went to school in Connecticut, we had front doors open only with a guard. And at 8 p.m., all front doors locked. And you had to go to the principal to explain why you were late for school at 8 a.m., I think she means.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, talking about the red flag laws, Connecticut was the first state in our nation to actually pass the red flag laws. So I don't know. That just kind of struck me as
Yeah.
interesting that Sonia just said that. So yeah,
Yep. So everybody, we need to be moving to these states that know what's up.
there we go.
That know what's
There we
going
go.
on. Yep. Yeah. I'm like, Sonia's going to school at 8 p.m.
I know,
Girl, those
right?
doors should be locked.
Sonia, that's hardcore.
You stay overnight if you're late.
That's right.
At Catholic school, I'll tell you what.
And
Oh,
and
thank you
Laura,
guys so much.
you're correct, Laura. Dave Ehrenberg did speak on that today, and that was a good episode. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, you guys, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you
Yes.
guys, and
Thank you so much.
we hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. And
Yeah.
we're going to attempt as closely as we can. There's always changes with schedules and stuff, but we're going to try to focus on Mondays as much as possible for a while. But
Yeah.
we're no promises. We're just going to see how it goes, because both Rachel and I have stuff that comes up, and so we may have to do it another day every once in a while. But hopefully Mondays will be
Yeah.
the most likely day.
Yeah. So subscribe if you haven't already, share our episode if you enjoyed it with your friends and family. And we love when new people join too. So thank you guys for being
Definitely.
here. We
Thank you
appreciate you.
guys. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great night. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Good night.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
This is where I end the stream. Okay.
We need